Welcome to Become a Millionaire Session 12. This is also known as the last session. So congratulations, everyone, for making it this far. My passage for today is from the Bible. It's Ecclesiastes from the King James Version of the Bible. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. I really love this passage, and the reason it's appropriate for Become a Millionaire is there's a time to become a millionaire, and that's your time right now. So welcome to the last session of Become a Millionaire. So I have a very short agenda today. I have reviewing session 11 like I always do. And then I have actually a whole host of session 12 topics. So rather than fill up the screen with those topics, I'm doing that on a separate screen. And then as usual, I'll give you the Become a Millionaire update, which I updated at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. So it's really, really up to date. And then I'll cover what's next. So let's review last session. So last session is when I first announced the Become a Millionaire podcast. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. I also presented a back test for my ETF strategy, and that actually worked out quite well. And I spoke about a bunch of advanced topics. These are future topics for purchasing individual stocks. So I talked about margin accounts. I talked about selling short and talked about GameStop, which is the poster child for hedge funds selling short. I talked about a trading platform like Active Trader Pro, where you can really manage all the information necessary to be a good trader. I talked about bid price, ask price, and the difference between bid and ask, the spread, and then the last price that equity traded for. We talked about trading volume. Trading volume is indication of how strong. Oh, can you guys mute? I mean, I'm going to mute you. I'll mute some people. So trading volume is an indication of how strong the market is. So if the market's going down, that's a low volume, that's not very strong. So you want a big trading volume before you can confirm the direction of the market. Then we talked about advanced order types, things like limit orders, where you can make sure you don't purchase for too much or sell for too little. And then we closed with an introduction to stock options. So that was last month. Homework for last month was to subscribe to my two channels, my Podbean channel and my Spotify channel, and listen to episode 1. Hopefully you've done that. I did that, and it worked out quite well. In preparation for today's session, which is the final session, I asked you to update your Become a Millionaire project plan for 2022. We had originally did that in session 5 and session 6, which would have been like May and June. And here we are 6 months later, you know a lot more, and I wanted to update it so that it aligned with a year, because that's always a good time to take stock. And then I also asked you to do the same thing with your long-term career plan that I believe we did in session, I don't remember what session we did, maybe 5. But anyways, it's good to put together a long-term career plan that is updated for the end of 2021, so you can plan your career going forward. And that's homework I wanted you to prepare for session 12. So here we are. Session 12 topics. So we have 12 topics. So we'll start with some acknowledgements. Some people have helped me throughout this course. I wanted to thank them. I also want to share with you what my approach was for this last session, so I'll talk about that. And then I'll review the basic BAM strategy we talked about back in session 1 and 2. I'll go into what I call the wealth engine that we talked about. I'm going to just provide some new color. We're going to review the entire Augment income curriculum, expand wealth curriculum, the buy home curriculum, and then the retirement accounts and taxes. And then we're going to look back at 2021 and review how we did in terms of becoming a millionaire. I'm going to set goals for 2022. Then I'm going to share with you a little bit about the origins of this Become a Millionaire course. And then I'm going to close with some final thoughts. So that's the agenda for today, 12 topics. So I wanted to thank my rehearsal team. It consists of Peter Yee, Stephanie Lee, Lynn Farrell, Mary Lee, and Diane Farrell. They invested a few hours every month to help listen to my presentation and give me feedback so that it could be better for the rest of you. So I want to thank them very much. I don't think the course would have been nearly as good if I didn't get that really good feedback. Now I wanted to give a shout out to my best students. So you know who you are. Lisa Ann has made almost every session, I think all of them. Zhang has made the most sessions. Cheryl Lynn's here today. She's made a lot of sessions. Judas and Fran both RSVP'd for this session, but I'm sure that they have trouble getting in because of Amazon and Meetup. Rowdy's has been a great student. Marley, Fiona, Edmund, and Paul. And I want to thank the other 155 students. I've taught 165 students in this course. So thank you for everyone who participated and gave me feedback and enjoyed the sessions and became an active member of this group. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. So let me talk about the approach to the last session. So I wanted to review all the key information, but I wanted to do it in a way that wasn't just repeating myself. So I wanted to provide some new material, which I have, and provide additional information when possible. And then I also want this to be a session that you can pull out every December and use it to review the past year and then to use it for the new year. So hopefully this session is one that you can reuse over and over again. And I've tried to design it that way. So here's the good news. After attending the 12 sessions of 2021 for Become a Millionaire, you now have more than enough knowledge to become a millionaire. You have more than enough knowledge. Much of what I teach in Become a Millionaire is common sense. So hopefully that's how you felt, because it hopefully makes a lot of sense. But I tried to put together in a step-by-step guide to make it easy for you to comprehend, easy for you to digest, and easy for you to learn. If you dedicate yourself to learning the material and then implementing the strategies, you will become a millionaire. So just know that. But remember, it does take time and it does take patience. So this does not happen quickly. And as I told you before, on average, it takes 28 years to become a millionaire. So we've only gone through one. But you can do it faster by moving more quickly through the ladder of success. And I have some new information on that I'll share a little later in today's session. So we shared this slide back in session 1. So it takes, on average, 28 years to become a millionaire. So, and the age that most people reach millionaire status is 49. So you just should be patient. So that's the way it is for everybody. And you need to take your time and manage yourself. And then we talked about this chart, which is the net worth by percentile. So depending on what your current net worth is, you are on a rung of the ladder, and the goal is to move up this chart, one at a time until you reach level 9, which is the millionaire status. So hopefully that's something that's allowed you to manage your progress. And we'll talk about that a little more when we get into the review. So here are the basic Become a Millionaire strategy. So it starts with a self-assessment, which is the attitude, aptitude, and ability. You really do need to do well in those three areas if you want to become a millionaire. And then you have to develop a project plan, which we did in, as I said, in session 5 and 6, and you just updated. So now you have a plan in which to follow to become a millionaire. And the components of that plan include the Augment income module, all 7 sessions. It includes the sessions on cutting expense and saving that money into your BAM account. It also includes investing that money and expanding wealth. So that's the ACE of the BAM strategies. And then buying a home is a very important component to accelerate your journey to become a millionaire. Cutting taxes is also a key component of that, and we talked about that. And then it's also very important to use your retirement account to expand your wealth. That way, you're building wealth without having to pay capital gains. So we talked about that, and we'll review that also. And then we remember that the 2 primary strategies to augment income is CEO of job and CEO of career. And finally, I wanted to highlight the augment income, cut expense, expand wealth as what I called the wealth engine. So that's where it all happens. That's what makes this work. Okay, so we'll go into a little more detail. So talking a little bit about self-assessment, the 3 A's. So having a positive attitude is really absolutely key to making this work. You have to have a willingness to work hard. And I think you know better what I mean now, because the last 12 months I've shared some ideas that really require a lot of hard work, as well as a lot of commitment, and requires a lot of time. So you need a positive attitude in order to devote all that work to becoming a millionaire. And then you also need a certain level of aptitude. So while I've presented information in a way that you can understand, you still have to absorb the information. You have to remember it. You have to learn it. And you do have to have an open mind. It's very easy to dismiss this as just another get-rich-quick scheme that doesn't work, but it really does work. And then finally, ability. I mean, this is one of the key ones, is really the ability to think and analyze. So this is very important as part of the process for augmenting your income and expanding wealth. You have to be able to think and analyze. You have to be able to get things done. It means, opening accounts, putting together networking plans. And it also requires you to put together plans and then execute those plans. So those 3 things are very important. And we'll talk a little more about that later, but that's really the foundation for getting started with Become a Millionaire. And then we've talked about this chart, which is a way to depict the Become a Millionaire strategies and the different levels you have to go through in order to become a millionaire. So we've talked about that. It's very important to remember that in order to achieve a certain level, as in this particular example, if you want to achieve 5% expand wealth, you have to do 4 things. So I wanted to reiterate this because I probably didn't reiterate enough during the course. Number 1, you have to listen to the presentation. And then number 2, you have to actually learn the material. It's not enough to just listen to it. You have to listen to it multiple times and take notes and write down all the important things so that you can remember it on your own. That's number 2. And then in this particular example, then you have to achieve annual return of 5% once. So you have to do it once. And then you have to do it consistently. So you have to go through all 4 steps before you can say that you have achieved 5% in expanding wealth. So you have to do that for all 3 strategies on all 5 levels. So just remember that. So I've put some things into the session 12 BAM folder. So if you go into BAM, there'll be a session 12 folder, and I have an updated top ETFs list there that we'll talk about a little later. And then I have a spreadsheet called BAM Session 12. And in that spreadsheet, I have 5 tabs, one for achievements. That's part of your report card. By the numbers, part of the report card. And then I have an example of by the numbers, and I have an example of achievements. And then I also have all the BAM topics by session. So if you want to get a refresher on, let's say, augment income 15%, it will tell you which session to go to. So I'll share that with you a little later. But that's what's actually in the BAM folder, and that will be useful for you to refresh your mind and some of the ideas and strategies. So let's talk about the wealth engine. So we talked about this back in session 2, I believe. And it's important to have the 5%, 10%, but what I really want to focus on is 15, 20, 25%, because that's where it becomes really interesting for me. If you had $1,000 in 15 years, if you could grow that 15%, you can grow that by 8 times. So it's an 8 times multiple. If you can get returns of 20%, you can get a 15 times multiple. So that 1,000 becomes 15,000. If you can get to 25%, that 1,000 becomes 28,000. So that's where I want to focus, because that's where I want you to go. So we'll talk a little more about that, but I wanted you to focus on the way $1,000 can increase dramatically. And this is all about compound growth. So that's number 1. Number 2 is getting high annual returns. So the 5 ways to get high annual returns, with reduced risk, at least in the beginning, was to start with a limited amount of money, like 1,000, as we talked about, and then invest in ETFs, because they're a basket of stocks, and that just gives you a little diversification, and it's much less risky than individual stocks. And then I wanted you to invest in different ETFs, in multiple sectors, different indices, just to reduce your concentration risk in one particular sector, one particular industry. And then I wanted you to spread your purchase out over time, so you weren't buying it all at the same time, because when the market fluctuates, you want to be able to get some at the lower levels, and not buy them all at the higher levels. So we talked about that. And then I only want you to pick low risk ETFs, and that's what my list of, at first it was 88 ETFs, then I reduced it to 44. And now I really want you to focus on like the top 20 to 30. There's no need to look beyond 20 to 30. And that list, if you look at 20 to 30, will be the ones with the lowest risk. So here you can get high annual returns with minimal risk because of all these strategies that we've employed. So here's the top 24 ETFs of the original 88 that I shared with you in session 2. So you can see that this was done back in February of 2021. And you remember SOX was number 1, that's a semiconductor, and that was doing, the first thing is that you can see the range on 10-year return is actually 22% to 18%. So that's about a 4% range from the best ETF to the 24th ETF. And you can see SOX as SMH, XBI is the biotech one, and PSI is semiconductor, and XST is semiconductor. And then we have a NASDAQ one, and PNQI. We have Vanguard Information Technology. Well, anyways, this was the original list. So I just redid this list, and this is in the BAM folder as I described. And what you can see is that the range now is actually a little bit better. So instead of 18 to 22%, we're now 20 to 26%. So that's pretty nice. And it turns out that of this 24, 19 are still on the list. So what it means is that 75 to 80% of the ETFs that I recommended have stayed at the top, at a much better range than it was, a short. That's like 11 months ago. See, 12 minus 2. Yeah, 10 months ago. So you can see SOX is still number 1, but it's gone from 22 to 26. SMH has gone from 22 to 25, but it actually dropped the level. XPI is actually off the list. That's one of the ones that has done well historically, but it's had a horrible year. So it's actually not on the top 24. I think it's probably number 30 to 40. I mean, it's not completely gone, but it's not in the top 20. And then PSI went from 4 to 2, which is went from 21% to 25%. XSD went from 20 to 25%. Vanguard went from 20 to 22. Anyways, you get the idea that by investing in top ETFs, there's a good likelihood that your ETFs have done well. And that's what this has shown. So going forward, you should use the updated list. And as I said, you should stick to the top 20 to 24. There's no need to go down to number 50 or 70 or 80. Even though I have in the list for you so you can reference it, I really ask you to focus on the top 20 if you want to make money, because those are the best ETFs and they provide the best return. And this ETF worksheet that I shared with you was a way to help you think through the ETF buying process. You were supposed to identify 10 ETFs, put down the description, the reason they made your list, and then put down confidence level, and then sort it. And then you're supposed to spend $100 each week on each one, go from A through E. And then after 5 weeks, you were supposed to redo the sheet as a way to take the knowledge you gained from the last 5 weeks and then redo the sheet, and hopefully you would improve your thinking over time. And to do it again every 5 weeks until you get a hang of it. So last time we talked about $1,000 that would grow either 5 times, 15 times, or 28 times. Here we're talking about an annual amount. So here, an example here would be the $10,000 would be invested every year for 15 years. So if you invested $10,000 every year for 15 years, you would end up with $557,000. That's actually quite nice. Remember, your principal is only $150,000. Right? You put 10,000 times 15 years, that's $150,000. So that $150,000 has grown to $557,000. It's grown almost $400,000. So that's very impressive. And if you can get to 20%, that $150,000 has grown to $874,000, grown almost $725,000. So that's why I want you to focus on the 15 and 26. First of all, it's very achievable, and it's where you will get to be a millionaire sooner rather than later. And obviously, if you can get to 25%, that's the best. Your $150,000 becomes 1.3 million. So, but that's hard. So I don't think you should focus on that for now. So the way to accelerate your BAM journey, and this is new material, is to focus yourself on getting to 15%. So I think, as I've talked about most of this presentation, is that this is where you want to be. Yes, you have to start out here and you've got to learn the basics, and that's very important. But in 1 or 2 years, you ought to be able to move right through here and then be at this level, this 15% level. So here is my assessment of how difficult these different levels are. So I'm going to go through each one. So for augment income, I think 5% is really quite easy. I mean, you might be getting 5% on your income, on your salary already. But if you throw in your 401k match, if you throw in maybe a second job, it's actually quite easy to get the 5%. I would say getting 10% is not as easy, so I give that medium difficulty. This probably requires a promotion. You really probably are one of the top people in your department, so this is not so easy. But again, if you add in a second job and your 401k match, it's actually not that hard. Getting the 15% here is actually quite difficult. I mean, it's hard to increase your income every year by 15%. So, but it's doable. 20% is very hard and 25% is very hard. So this is where I want you to focus. I think this is doable, especially with a second job or with your 401k match and things like that. Cut expenses 5% is actually quite easy. If you're making $50,000, that's $200 a month. That's not bad. At 10%, we're talking about $400 a month. I still think that's pretty modest if you're making $50,000 a year. 15% is a little bit harder. So now we're looking at $600 savings. If you're making $50,000 a year, and that's, so I consider medium difficulty. 20% is medium difficulty. It becomes easier as you make more money, and then 25% is actually quite hard. Finally, expand wealth. I think 5% is quite easy. The strategy I've given you will exceed 5% for sure. I think 10% is, I consider medium, and then 15% I consider medium, 20% and 25% are hard and very hard. So I think this is the place to focus. So what I did was I took my model and I said, so this assumes your annual income is $50,000, assumes your BAM composite score is either 5, 8, 10, 15, 20, 23, or 25. Assumes you start with about $20,000 net worth. And at 5%, it takes you 42 years to become a millionaire. So that's a long time. I don't recommend that because that's too long. At 8%, you'll be down to 26 years. So that's not too bad. It's just a little bit less than the 28 that we talked about. If you can get to 10%, which I think is you should get there within 1 to 2 years, we're looking at an additional 21 years to get there. But the one I really want you to focus on is this 15%. I believe in 2 years, you can get to 15% as a BAM composite score. And then from that point on, it's 14 years. So that would be a total of 16 years, right? 2 years to get to 15%, and then another 14 years after that. If you can get to 20%, you're down to 10 years, and that's really nice. But given how hard it is to go from 15 to 20%, I just wait an extra 4 years. That's not a big deal. And even going to 23%, you only save 1 year. Going 25%, you save 1 year. So while this is nice if you can get there, I would just focus on this because this is where it's very doable, very achievable numbers, and you can get that there in only 14 years after you get to 15%. So my new advice to you today is to set 15%, as your target over the next, couple of years. Try to get there, and then from that point on, try to maintain that 15%, and you'll get there in 14 years. So today, starting today, you've got to take charge of your Become a Millionaire journey because the course is over. It means that you have to figure out how you focus your time and energy for 2022 and beyond. And today's session is about doing that. So that's where I'm going to try to help focus your energy. What we're going to do is we're going to review the past 12 months, try to think about everything that we've learned, everything that we've done, and then putting together goals for the next 12 months. And again, this session, today's session, can serve as a template for what you should be doing in December of every year. So let me just say that the course that I've taught really should have been taught over multiple years. But I was trying to get it all across 12 months. So I ended up, putting a lot more material into 1 year than I probably should have. So I apologize for that, but that was the only way I could get the material in 1 year. So given that, it's important for you to remember at this time that for each strategy, you have to master each level completely before going on to the next level. So an example, you should master Expand Wealth 5%, which is going through those 4 steps before starting on Expand Wealth 10%. And then you should master 10%, which is going through those 4 steps before attempting 15%. And the reason I say this is because it ensures that you build a very strong foundation for your skills before attempting a more difficult strategy. This week is actually a good example. So I'm not sure if you've been following the stock market, but before today, the market has been really rough. It's been going down because of the new Omicron COVID-19 variant. and some other problems with the economy, et cetera. So the market's been really rough. But because I've been teaching this course and I know that in the long run the stock market goes up, it didn't really bother me. And today, half it came bouncing back. So I had heard on CNN, one of the commentators this was last week when the market had really fallen a lot, was advising his clients to sell because he was so afraid. That was the absolute wrong thing to do. They would have missed out on today's recovery. And if you recall, Peter Lynch, who was the person who was responsible for the Fidelity Magellan Fund, said that the most important organ for investing is not your brain, it's your stomach. It's the ability to handle these downturns without panicking and selling. So it's important to really have a strong understanding of the fundamentals so that you don't fall into the same trap that person did when he started to tell his clients to sell when the market was down a lot. So remember, that was the whole purpose of the Ladder of Success worksheet, to go through each of those 4 steps for 5% and 10% and then 15%, and do it stepwise. Make sure you always master one level before going to the next. And the way I taught the courses this year, that made it harder for you. So I'm sorry about that, but we'll rectify that today. So moving into reviewing Augment income, remember the 2 primary strategies for Augment the income is, number 1, CEO of your job. That means doing a great job at work. And number 2, being CEO of your career. These are both very long-term strategies, so you may not see the benefits immediately. And it does take a long time to learn these concepts and to practice these principles. Both these strategies are complementary. So when you do it together, they make each strategy better. And it's going to take some time to apply these strategies to your own job and to your own career. So you have to be a little patient. What I wanted to say is that these concepts really go beyond become a millionaire, and these will benefit you for a lifetime as you progress through your careers. So I did 7 modules on Augment income. Module 1 was actually Augment income outside your career. So this was the part-time job, this was the consulting, this was the gig economy. Anyway, so it was not difficult to augment income by 5% by getting an outside job. If you were making $50,000 a year, you would have to make an extra $2,500 a year in order to augment your income by $2,500 outside your career. So I think that's very doable, especially if you're young and you have a lot of energy. And I did 3 sessions on CEO of job. The first was be competent. The second was be excellent and be a leader. And the third was to lead one major improvement project and then to lead multiple major improvement projects. That was the Augment income CEO of job curriculum. And then we had 3 sessions on CEO of career. We did module 1, which was steps 1, 2, 3. And then we did module 2, which was steps 4 through 6. And we did module 3, which was steps 7 through 10, and we'll review that. But this was the overall curriculum. So just a reminder, so for CEO of your job, make sure you master 5% before going to 10%. And ideally, I should have taught CEO of job over a 5-year period, and I crammed into 1 year. So I think that might have caused some problems. So if I was to teach this course in 5 years, I would have taken 1 year to teach Be Competent. It actually takes several months, maybe 2-3 months, to do CDC for Be Competent. This is to clarify what it means to be competent in your job, then to document that in a lot of detail, and then to confirm it with your manager. Those 3 steps could take 2-3 months to do it properly, and to have a very comprehensive document that describes what it means to be competent in your job. And then it probably takes another 6 to 9 months to do the API, which is to analyze your job performance against the document, and then put together a plan of how you're going to improve, and then to implement that plan. So that could take, and then you have to do it over and over again until you reach the be competent level. That could easily take 6 to 9 months. So that would be a 1-year course. So, and I would have had you do that for a year before I taught Be Excellent, which would begin at the beginning of year 2. So I would teach Be Competent for 1 year, and now I would teach Be Excellent for another entire year, because again, it takes 2 to 3 months to properly document what it means to be excellent in your job. You know, what's the quality of work? What's the quantity of work? How do you stand out in your group as probably the top 10% in your group in terms of people who are effective, efficient, get things done, and someone that others view as an excellent performer. And then it actually takes an entire year to learn to be a leader. Could even take longer. But again, it will take 2 to 3 months to clarify what being a leader means in your department, in your company. What are the characteristics? What different areas you have to be a leader? And remember, you can't be a leader unless you're already competent and you're already excellent, right? No one's going to follow someone who's not competent. So that's why it's important to go through this in a stepwise fashion. So it would take a year or more to get to be a leader in your group. And then to lead one major improvement project, that's also a 1-year course. That's probably a very challenging course to find the kind of project in your company can give you, 15, 20, 25% improvement in your department. To find something like that and to convince your management to let you be involved in that kind of project, that's a 1-year course. And then if you're going to do it for 2, 3 projects simultaneously, that's another year course. So this is a 5-year course that I crammed into 1 year. So I'm sorry, but that's the right way of doing it. So what you should do is in 2022, you should go back and redo Be Competent. Make sure you have that down pat before you begin Be Excellent. Go back to the foundation, build a strong foundation. So we talked about the CDC and API, which is to clarify, to document, to confirm, and then to analyze, plan, and implement, and then to repeat the API over and over again until you've achieved what's documented in step 2. So that completes the CEO of Job module that I would normally have taught over 5 years. So being CEO of Career, you have 2 separate and distinct roles. One is you are the product, just like in Jerry Maguire, Cuba Gooding Jr. was the football player. So he had to be the best football player around. So you have to be the best candidate possible. And then your second job was to be like Tom Cruise, who is the agent. So his job was to market and promote the candidate. In Jerry Maguire, that was Cuba Gooding Jr. So as CEO of your job, you actually have both roles. So that's a lot of work. So when I say you are the product, what exactly do I mean? What I mean is, it's the way you come across as a potential job candidate. So it's your education. Where'd you go to school? It's what kind of degrees do you have? It includes what your current job is. Where do you work? What company? What kind of job are you doing? Are you performing at a high level? What are your other work experiences? What kind of knowledge do you have about project management, about the industry, about different areas? What kind of skills do you have? How do you look? How do you dress? How do you present yourself during an interview and as you meet people? How do you communicate when you meet people? How do you perform during an interview? What's your personality like? Do you have good reference? And so much more. So all of this are the things that make you the product. So and these are things that, as CEO of your job, you need to make sure you perform very well at. And role 2 is to promote and market your career. So what are the responsibilities? Well, you have to sell yourself as a job candidate. First, you have to make the product best it can be. And then second, you have to know the client, which to know yourself. You have to do some self-discovery, and we had an exercise for that. You have to do a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then third, you have to know the job market, the relevant job market. What job opportunities are available? What's the salary range? What are the requirements for these jobs? Do you know many recruiters for these types of jobs? They're the gateway to the job. So these are things that as CEO of your career, you really need to spend some time to do a good job. And then finally, you have to know how to package and present the candidate and so much more. So there's a lot to this CEO of career. If I was to teach CEO of career and I had time, I would have taught over 4 years. I would have taken an entire year to do the personal vision, which is really important to make sure you get that right. At least a few months to get to know yourself. This is to look at yourself as a potential job candidate, to do the SWOT analysis, and at least 3 to 6 months to develop your long-term career plan. So 1 full year to just do steps 1, 2, and 3. And that's probably what you should go back and refocus on in 2022. Just get that down well. That's important. And then in year 2, you should develop your personal roadmap. This is figuring out over the next 4 or 5 years, where you want your career to go. And then from there, you develop your self-development plan, which is what skills do you want to develop over the next 1 or 2 years. Steps 4 and 5 is a full year course. And then steps 6 and 7 would be the 3rd year. This is when you really do the homework to find out more about the job market for the kind of jobs that you want. This is meeting with recruiters. It's looking at job boards. It's networking with colleagues and networking with other people in the industry. It's a lot of work, at least 3 to 6 months to really know the job market inside out. And then another 3 to 6 months to develop your network for success. These are all your friends, your colleagues, people that you've worked with in the past, people that like potential mentors, people that can really help you be successful in your career development. And then the final year, we would work on goals and objectives. We will work on setting up metrics to track your progress. And then we will focus on the strategies for doing monthly reviews. This is a 4-year course I crammed into 1 year. So starting 2022, you should go back to step 1 and go through it more slowly and make sure you really, really understand the material well before you move to the next section. So that completes the Augment income. We did the CEO of job, we did the CEO of career. So now let's move into reviewing expand wealth. So this is very important that we go over the stock market primer. This is something I shared back in session 2. It's vitally important. Again, it's the foundation, right? So you have to remember that there are no guarantees in investing. I don't want you to think that just because you're investing, you will absolutely make money. You may not. But if you want to become a millionaire, you must take some risk. There's no such thing as becoming a millionaire and taking zero risk. Even though there is risk, what I've tried to do is put together strategies to help you reduce those risks or minimize those risks. And I think that that makes the risk worthwhile and okay. What I teach is long-term investing, which means that you have to believe that the stock market is going to go up in the long run. If you don't believe that, then you really should find a different way to invest because it wouldn't work for you. I believe that the stock market in the long run will go up, and that's why I'm very comfortable investing this way. You have to know that the stock market will have ups and downs, and that's just the way it is. And you cannot panic when the market goes down. And you should plan to hold things that you acquire for at least 3 to 5 years, because that's a period of time for it to build on on its marketing strategy, its revenues, its earnings. So you should be looking at a long-term investment plan. So we've shared this slide before back in session 2. So this is a log scale. So this is the S&P 500 index. So 10 to 100 is the same height as 100 to 1,000, same height as 1,000 to 10,000. So this is called log scale. And what you can see is that the long-term trend is positive. And that's what I mean by you have to believe this. If you don't believe that this will continue, then you really cannot invest in the stock market because it's not a good bet. It's not a good investment. But I believe this trend will continue. As you can see, these gray bars are recessions, and there's been 16 or 17 of them over the past 90 years. This was the stock market crash of the 1920s. This was the dot-com bubble. This was the 2008 financial crisis. This little blip here was COVID. So remember, I took those 90 years and I put it into a histogram. And what we find is of the 90 years, 62 years the stock market went up, but a full 28 years it went down. So that's what I mean. You have to be willing to accept that it will go down. But in spite of it going down 28 years, on average, it grows 7.6% a year for the past 90 years. So that's a ratio of, for every 10 years, 70% of them were up. So that's good. But a full 30% were down. So you just have to accept that. And that's going to happen. That's just part of investing. So if I was teaching the Expand Wealth course, over time, I would have taught it over 2 years. So year 1, I would have spent on ETFs completely just to get you to 15%. So remember, 5% was investing baby steps. That was to get you started. And then 10% we were buying on a dip. And then we're using watch lists to improve your returns. And then Expand Wealth 15% was when I started talking about financial advisors, asset allocation, risk return, and then retirement accounts. So at that point of 15%, so if you go back and spend the next year making sure that you can get the 15% consistently, then you should then ramp up your investments. I'm not talking about the 1,000, 3,000, but if you had 20,000, you should, obviously you should save some for a rainy day, but you should put the bulk of it into your ETF account so that can grow 15%, which was the target for getting to 14 years. So that's what I really want you to do. I think that this is a very straightforward strategy. Almost anyone can do it. You just have to jump in. This strategy uses only top ETFs. It gives you diversification based on sectors and indices. And then you should buy a little bit each week. So if you had, let's say, $10,000, you should spend 5% each week, so that it would take you 20 weeks to invest the entire $10,000. So that's the time diversification I'm talking about. So at some point you should stop learning and start putting real money into the ETFs, because this strategy works. And you'll start getting 15%. And if you want to stop there, that'll be absolutely fine, because that's a much safer strategy than year 2, because year 2 is about individual stocks. And you do need to get the individual stocks, you want to get to 25%. But if you want to stay 15%, you don't need to do this. I would have taught the module 1 was about introduction to individual stocks. And that's when I talked about, the greatest investors of all time. We talked about Warren Buffett. We talked about Peter Lynch and a whole host of other people. Module 2 is when we talked about TV stations like CNBC, Fox Business. We talked about websites like CNBC, newspapers like Wall Street Journal, and subscription newsletters. And then Expand Wealth 25% Module 3, we talked about how to analyze stocks to look for, growing revenue, growing earnings, look for earnings surprises, positive earnings surprises, et cetera. So we looked at different ways to analyze stocks. And then we also looked at Cathie Wood, which was really innovation. So looking at stocks a little differently with that. And then, last month we talked about the future topics. So this would have been year 2 of the course. And at the end of this course, I would ask you to start exploring subscriptions and find one that's less than $100 a year and begin subscribing. Because believe me, I think it's well worth it. That $100 a year, you can probably make $10, $15, $20,000 with the kind of advice they'll give you. And when you start investing in individual stocks, you should do the same thing we did with ETFs. Put $1,000 into a new Fidelity account, find 10 to 15 stocks that you like, and write down why you like it, and then sort it by confidence, A, B, C, D, and E, and then invest $100 a week for 10 weeks. Do that every 5 weeks, redo your little worksheet. And if you start getting over 20% consistently with this little strategy, then you will have achieved Expand Wealth 20%, and then you would be at the even higher levels than the 15%. But this is hard. So that completes the Expand Wealth review. Then we talked about buy a home. We talked about the 3 modules, which was the introduction and benefits of buying a home. We talked about getting a mortgage, and we talked about the process of buying a home. So as you recall, when we talked about buying a home, the financial benefits were your property appreciating in value, 5-10% a year. We talked about building monthly savings. So that if you could actually come up with a mortgage and expenses that was less than your rent, then you could be putting that additional money into your BAM account. We talked about creating substantial tax benefits by purchasing a house. Your taxes become tax deductible, your interest becomes tax deductible. So it actually creates a nice tax-free income. Creates nice tax benefits. And then you're also paying off some principal in your mortgage. And then finally, you no longer have your landlord, you're raising your rent 10, 15% every year. So A, B, C, D, and E. We talked about getting the mortgage. I asked you to find out what your credit scores were, and if it wasn't what you wanted to be, you should work on making that better. We talked about types of mortgages available, like 15, 30 years, adjustable arms. We talked about shopping for a lender. And we talked about what a mortgage broker does. And then we talked about what the debt to income ratios were that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were looking for. So in terms of, you now know the benefits of buying a home. You know it's one of the best ways to grow your net worth. You've checked your credit score, and if you need to, you've improved it. You should try to get a pre-approval for your mortgage. That gives you more buying power. You should begin the search process right away, because this can take some time before you find the right property in the right location at the right price, and you have to be patient. Buying a home is an important step to becoming a millionaire. So let's quickly talk about taxes. These are the 2020 tax brackets. The rates are 10, 12, 22, all the way up to 37. And this is the bracket if you're single, if you're married, filing jointly, and then if you're head of household. So those are 3 federal taxes. And then we talked about capital gains. and how for short-term capital gain, and we're just talking about federal taxes, by the way, the rate for short-term is 33% on this example. Obviously, it depends on which bracket you're in, but it's only 15% for long-term. So you obviously want your capital gains to be long-term, which is you have to wait a year before you sell it. If you sold in less than a year, you'll be paying short-term capital gains. So then we talk about retirement accounts. So there's obviously two types of retirement accounts. There's a traditional IRA, and this is where whatever money you put into your traditional IRA, you do not pay taxes on. So it's basically before tax investment, but then you pay tax when you take it out later when you retire. The Roth IRA, you put after tax money in. So if you put in money, it's after tax money. And then after that, it grows tax-free. And when you take it out, you don't pay taxes. And there's two types. There's your individual plan, and then there's the employer-sponsored accounts, which is the 401k plan. So you can have both. So you have to find a way to try to maximize this, because remember, this is one of the best ways to build wealth. So let's move to reviewing the last 12 months. So I have three different ways of doing it. One is by the numbers. Two is to try to recall your achievements. And three is to grade yourself. So here's the by the numbers that I have in the BAM folder. So basically, the first thing you should do is go back and just write down what you entered during session 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So that's the first thing you should do. And then for the present, which is for the end of this year, 12/31/2021, so like in a few weeks, you should say, what is my net worth percentile now? And hopefully it's improved. Maybe you start at 1 and now you're at 2. You have to see what you think your augment income is. Maybe you thought it was 5%, then now you think it's 7%. Hopefully it's improved. Same for cut expense. Same for expand wealth. Figure out what your BAM composite score is. So it was 3%, then it's 8% now. Remember, this is what you're trying to get to 15%. And then session 2, you actually try to cut expense. So see what your actuals were and see if you've improved it since then. Hopefully you've improved it since session 2. And then what attitude, aptitude, ability scores did you put in session 3? What are they now? And in terms of career role in row 1 and 2, what were you back in session 4? And what are you now? And when you did your BAM project plan in May, when were you supposed to become a millionaire? And what is it now? Has it improved? So I want you to fill out this column today. This was basically what you filled out over the last, about 6 to 9 months ago. And then for each of these topics, I wanted you to try to think about all the things you were able to learn or able to put into action in the past 12 months. So here's an example. So investing in ETFs. So what were your achievements? Well, you learned about ETFs, you started investing, and you got a 10% return. If you can write something like this, you should be very proud of yourself, because that's a lot of learning. Cut to save expenses. So in this example, you eliminate credit card debt, which would be great. You reduce your monthly expense by $300, and you save 8% of your income. So if you did that, that'd be great. So whatever your situation is, you should fill it out. So for augment income, maybe what you did was you increased your 401k contribution to 6%, and your company's matching 3%. So that would be great. You're increasing your retirement account. For CEO of a job, maybe you did CDC and API to be competent. Maybe you did CDC for excellent, but you haven't finished the API process yet. That's okay. Maybe if the CEO of career, you did steps 1 through 5, and you're meeting with recruiters and activating your network. For buy a home, maybe you improve your credit score. Maybe you figure out how much down payment you need, and then you plan to get a home in 2 to 3 years. That would be great progress if you were able to figure that out. You'll maximize your retirement accounts. If you were able to maximize your 401k and you max your IRA, that would be great for both traditional and Roth. If you're able to better understand your taxes and you're trying to reduce your adjusted gross income, that'd be great. And then for individual stocks, if you did not start because you haven't gotten 50%, that's completely fine. And then for the same things, I want you to grade yourself. So the way you would grade yourself is for an A, you did a great job. If you did a good job, you give yourself a B. If you did an okay job, you gave yourself a C. If you need improvement, you gave yourself a D. And then if it's not applicable, you say an A. So if you had done this, I would say that's an A in investing, an A in cut expenses, A in augment income, a B in CEO of job, a B in CEO of career, B in buy home, A in retirement accounts, B in reducing taxes, and not applicable for investing. So when you go through that exercise, you have to take a step back and say, how did I do? Was I satisfied with my results? So after that, we should set goals for 2022. So again, it's the same categories, but for each one, you have to decide what goals you want between January of 2022 to December of 2022. So again, we go back to by the numbers. So we're going to set some goals. So maybe your goal is to get to a 3 by the end of the year, and 10 in augment, and 10 in cut, and 15 in expand. Maybe 12 is your composite score. Maybe you can cut a little more expense and save some more money. Maybe you can be more positive, you have a better aptitude and better ability. You can slowly improving these scores, improving in your role 1 and role 2, and then again, reducing the time to become millionaire. If you could do something like this and you saw this kind of progress here, and then you realistically see you can get to there, you should be very proud. I mean, that's a lot of progress. And finally, for each of these categories, come up with what achievements you want to have in the new year. So this is continue to invest in top ETFs, learn to run the ETF screener, get the 15% return consistently. That would be a great goal. Get to cut expense 15% by continuing to reduce bills. Augment income outside career, well, you're not going to do that, so it's not applicable. Finish API for Be Excellent and begin CDC for Be a Leader. And then do API for Be a Leader. That would be great. Complete steps 6 through 10 for CEO of career. Find 5 recruiters I can network with and find 10 key people to network with. That's good. Buy home. So by now, save up to 70% of my down payment. Continue to track homes in my price range. And then purchase home 1 to 2 years. That would be a great goal. Continue to contribute max. Pay more attention reducing your adjusted gross income, and explore newsletters and subscribe to one for less than $100 a year. If you could set a bunch of goals like this 2022, this is how you focus your effort in 2022. Don't do all the things I've taught you. Just focus on these more modest goals. And if you were able to achieve this in 2022, you'll be really well set up for 2023. So that completes the review. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about the origins of BAM, right? So a year ago, so back in September of 2020, I was thinking about what new projects I wanted to take on in 2021. And at the time, I thought about my book, and I thought about teaching career development. But I noticed that on the internet, YouTube, there's just so many people writing and talking about the subject already. I felt I'd get lost in the noise. Then because I had done really well in the stock market in 2020, I thought I could start teaching a course on investing. But if you go online, you can see there's tons of people doing that as well. So I considered combining both topics, and that's when Become a Millionaire became really a unifying concept for these two topics. And that's how Become a Millionaire was born, because it leverages the augment income skills and expand wealth skills together, using that compound growth to really grow your net worth. And then the original formula for ACE was really it was actually much simpler. It was, I'm sure simple. It was increase your annual income, which makes sense. It was to save a certain amount of money every year and then invest in the stock market. That's what I was originally thinking about. But I really didn't like that because it really wasn't easy to remember. It wasn't catchy. So, and that's what made me come up with this acronym ACE and use Augment, Cut, and Expand to make it easy to remember. And that's really been the sort of linchpin for this whole course. And then I wanted a way for students to quickly visualize in this chart, what kind of progress they were making, and then use the same numbers to quickly determine how quick you could become a millionaire. So it really served dual purposes. So my final thoughts for this course now are that my goal in this course was to teach you all to fish. So if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And Lao Tzu said this, and that was really my goal in this course, was to teach you to learn how to invest so that you could invest for your whole life. If I just told you what to do, then you would invest for a short period of time, but it wouldn't be something that was sustainable. So I tried to teach this in a way that allowed you to eat for the rest of your life. Here's a quote by Ben Franklin. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn. So that's what Baby Steps Investing was about. I didn't tell you what to invest in. I gave you a list of ETFs and I asked you to fill out the ETF worksheet. After investing $100 per week for 5 weeks, I asked you to fill out the worksheet again. This process enabled you to refine your thinking. So that's my way of teaching you how to fish. I wanted to talk a little bit about the life skills that are taught in Become a Millionaire. So these are the 10 skills that's part of the Become a Millionaire curriculum that I think is valuable for your career and is valuable for investing. So obviously, cutting your expense and saving money, that's really how to save money. Expand wealth is really how to invest. Compound growth was really about the power of compounding. 3 A's was about aptitude, attitude, and ability. Augment income was really about being valuable to the company. A seal of career was about marketing yourself. Developing and implementing project plan was really about planning and implementing. Retirement accounts was really how to use retirement accounts to your benefit. Minimizing taxes was how to legally reduce your taxes. And finally, build a home was to build equity and reduce taxes at the same time. Those are the 10 skills that are encompassed in Become a Millionaire. And I really consider these very generic skills. While I taught these in the context of Become a Millionaire, they really do transcend it. I mean, I'm hopeful that these skills can be introduced in the junior high school, like maybe 7th, 8th grade, and then reinforced in high school and then reinforced in college. Because I believe anyone who understands these 10 skills will really enjoy financial prosperity for the rest of their life. And it's really not too late to start. I mean, it's really not too late to start. And if you have children, teach them well these skills. And that completes that last section. So I'll give you an update on the BAM account. So I did this at 3:34 p.m. today, December 7th. So you can see SOX is actually up 36% since I bought it. That's amazing. XSD is up 29%. PSI is up 25%. VGT is up 21%. QQQ 17. IHI is 8. IGV is 7. PNQI is 5. XNTK is 4. And PSJ is the only one that's disappointing. I lost 9%. So you can't win them all, but to get 9 out of 10 is actually not bad. I'm actually very pleased with this. This shows a total return of about $425 on the $3,000. So if you look at this, what you see is that we started out the year down 3%, then we went up 11, went up 17, then we fell back to 9, went up to 20, down to 14, up to 21, down to 5, up to 15, went to 20, 13, and then as of today, we're at 17%, which I'm very happy with, because remember, this was a expand wealth 10% strategy. So to get 17%, annualized is actually quite good. 14.5% is the real rate, but if you annualize 17%, and that compares pretty well with the NASDAQ, which is 18%. So I'm at 1% less than NASDAQ, and I'm 9% less than the S&P. So there we go. So these are the 12 sessions. And this is what I was telling you about. So as part of the spreadsheet, this is the session number. So if you want to know what session did I teach, CEO job, you can go to session 6. I'm sorry, yeah. If you want to learn expand wealth 10%, you go to session 5. If you want to know about individual stocks 1, you go to session 7. So this is really just a quick way for you to figure out where to get something that you need a little refresher in. And what's next? So my plan next year is to do quarterly sessions instead of monthly sessions. So I'm going to do the first Tuesday of March, June, September, and December. And I'm just going to discuss any updates in legislation that affect the stock market, affect taxes, affect retirement accounts. And then I'll talk about hot topics like meme stocks, IPOs, other current events that impact investing or career development. And then if I have any new become a millionaire ideas or concepts I think about, I'll share that as well. So that's what I plan to do in the new year. So that actually completes the Become a Millionaire. So congratulations, you all did it. Thank you.
I want to clap so you can hear me.
Thank you.
That's good.
Thank you, Phil.
You're welcome.
Bravo. Bravo.
Can you imagine that? I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, so my last chance for feedback.
Unintended, but we appreciate your investment in us. That was a lot of work. So
Yeah, it was
you.
good. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and
You're a
hopefully
great
you all learned
teacher.
a lot too.
Yeah.
I
Did.
totally echo that as well, what Len just said. I think that your attention to detail, the care that you've put in month over month, and just kind of making sure that there's a lot of work and effort you put into that on a monthly basis. So we so appreciate that. Like, I know personally I've learned a lot. So thank you for your time, but also your selflessness as well.
Thank you, Charlene. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's it's been great. I've enjoyed doing it, but the students have been great too. They've really given me a lot of motivation. So, I think because there are some people that might miss today's session, obviously I will post this on the YouTube site, but I may do another session in either 1 or 2 weeks, maybe 1 week if Meetup comes back, because I feel bad that Lisa Ann, Judas, Fiona, there's a bunch of people that I think would have enjoyed it, but because of Meetup, they didn't get a chance to come on. So if anyone wants to come and see this done again, you're welcome to join too. But I do plan to do this for the people that missed it because of the website technical issues.
And we'll have access to the recording as well, right, Phil?
Yes. No, I'm definitely gonna post the recording, but I think it's a little different live. So I just feel bad for the people who wanted to come but couldn't make it because of the technical issues. So I'll put it out. If no one comes, that's okay. I won't hold it.
That's fair.
Peter?
You know that
Edmund.
have for the top
I
100
see.
ETFs?
Yeah.
Is there also one for like the top 100 stocks?
Yes, there is.
The one for top 100
Well,
mutual?
you have to create. It's a screener. You just got to create your own. The reason I don't do the top stocks is because it's too volatile. You get a stock that's done well for 10 years, and it could crash on you. I mean, so stocks are very different from ETFs.
Yeah. So but we're talking like maybe like Fortune 1000 companies or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. You can definitely do that. But I'm telling you, I would not invest in those companies the way I invest in ETFs because there's a level of volatility in it that
Sure,
doesn't
but you're
really
looking at
reflect.
it again, so with that same philosophy hold true. So if you take the top 100, so see how you referenced it, the top for the past 10 years with ETFs,
Mhm.
the same philosophy with stocks and see, you know,
So here's the deal. I mean, so you might have missed the session, but I did share with you the top stocks, and the range for ETFs you saw was like 18 to 22%. So that's the range.
mhm.
The range for ETFs, the range of stocks, the best stocks were like, I can't remember. It's probably like, I'm making it up. I shouldn't make it up, but it's a
Okay,
lot.
no,
It's
that's fine. I was
It's like
just wondering.
1,000%. So anything that's gone up 1,000%, I think is a risk of just not doing well. So I really worry about that. So I really hope you don't do that. I hope you don't take my strategy and apply it to stocks, because I'm telling you publicly, it does not work. That does not work. Please don't do that. It doesn't work. I mean, believe me, if that worked, I would have taught that, because you could make so much more money if it worked. Because then you're not looking at 26%. You're looking at 10,000%. It works in mutual funds. It works in mutual funds. The only problem with mutual funds is that they have a fee of 1.8 to 2%, and ETFs is 0.2 to 0.5. So, I mean, if you want to give up an extra 1.5% every year for the next 20 years, I mean, it's going to impact you. But mutual funds will work. I hate mutual funds because they don't settle until the end of the day. I don't like that doesn't change during the day. So I have an aversion to mutual funds. I used to do mutual funds before ETFs, but I just found ETFs to be much better.
Okay, but not that, even though it doesn't settle to the end of the day, but you're looking at it in the long run, right?
I understand. No,
Okay, no, these are just questions.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. But if you're trying to do this for stocks, I do not recommend it. I'm telling you, I do not recommend it.
So I shouldn't listen on the AMD stock or
What about AMD? AMD is a great stock. It's gone up a lot.
no, that's just
The only thing you don't know is if it's too late. That's the problem too. With ETFs, if you're growing 20, 25% a year, you might be a little late, but it's not the same. It's just not the same.
Yes. I'm just trying to, again, like I've spoken to you in the past, is just get a better sense.
I understand.
Learning this stuff.
Well, I think I understand what you're trying to extrapolate, and you just have to be careful because certain extrapolations are not going to work. Believe me, if that worked, I would have taught that.
Sure.
Peter, what
I
do you
do appreciate all your time and effort into this.
You're welcome, man.
Yeah.
I'm just listening to this like intellectual banter that really makes my life interesting.
I just want to go on record as I told Emmett not to do that. If Emmett loses money on that, I am not taking responsibility. I am not taking responsibility.
All right. So if anyone wants to come, well, we're going to be having a little function at my house this weekend. So if you want some banter going on. And that's been confirmed.
Well, I think the main things, when you look at ETF or mutual fund, you're talking about hundreds of positions. So the variance is lot smaller. When you look at one stock, it's like if you look at that happened to be Apple, a few years ago, Netflix, then you go, wow, I can make a couple thousand% a year. Thank you.
Oh yes, I understand that. Yeah, that's common sense. I was just wondering if there's a trending like that also. Say if you look at IBM, okay, and over the past 20 years.
IBM's not done well.
Oh no. Yeah.
IBM's one of those. If you did IBM in like 1985, it was doing extremely well. And you said, "Oh, well, you put any money in it, you would have lost you will lost a lot of money. General Electric's another one. That for many years, it probably grew 25% a year for 50 years. General Electric was considered darling of Wall Street. In the last 20 years, it's done nothing. In fact, you probably lost 9% of your money after.
Yeah, that's part of the industry.
That's
right?
why no, it's because you can't do individual stocks. Individual stocks is too volatile.
Okay.
Why do you think I tell you subscribe to newsletters? Because you got all those smart people combing through all this data and giving you advice. They don't do this. You can't screen for stocks that way.
Yeah, yes.
You can't do it.
Individual stocks is more like gambling. If you're into gambling, then you do it. Hey, that's a good name. The symbol sounds cool. So I'm lucky, so you do it. You might as well do that because that's what individual stock.
But the reality is, if you're going to do that, you can just randomly pick a stock because picking the top stocks won't help you because those might be the ones that fall the next year. So it's just
that's
not
how I
the
pick my
same.
football picks too.
It's the basket of stocks, the basket of positions that makes it a smaller variance that you can rely on this long-term trend. In fact, even 5 years is not long enough. Those ARCs that I talked about doing terrible. They were like the best stocks in 5 years, but best ETFs in 5 years, but they do horrible over a longer period of time.
Okay, yeah, I understood that, but the main thing was, is there? So you have to create your own list from
Of stocks.
yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways to buy stocks. Did you miss that episode? You have to look at revenue growth. I mean, there's lots of things to look at. And return is not one of the ones that
Subscribe to
I
one of
talk
those like Motley Fool or any of those newsletters.
Yeah. Motley Fool.
This is a minimal cost, and they're good. They help you.
They're very good.
And they will give you a list. They will give you a list. So if you want a list, they will give you a list.
Yes.
Go with their list. Yeah.
Well, if you want to use that list and randomly pick one, that's okay, because those have already been screened by them.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, even though it's a good list, they make mistakes. Navalia just told me to sell FUTU today. They said, we lost 70%. We're sorry. Sell it today. Oh, thank you very much. You definitely have other winners that make up for it. Sorry.
Anyway, let me thank Philip. Yeah, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Philip, okay, for your generosity, to take the time to share your knowledge and experience with us to become a millionaire. And thanks also that you give us a chance to revisit all your sessions by putting it on YouTube and the podcast.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Phil.
We really learned a lot.
Thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie gave me a heart and Lynn gave me a thumbs up.
I know, I lost Christopher and Di. Anyway, you did a great job.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you.
Mm-mm.
Stephanie, you're so quiet.
I'm here.
What did you think, Stephanie? You missed the rehearsal this week.
Yeah. I thought it was really good. It was
Thank
good
you.
that you reviewed all the information. It was a lot. It was a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Thank you.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, anyways, if you guys, if I do the session next week, you're welcome to join. Otherwise, I'll see you in March of 2022.
Okay. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks,
Thank
Phil.
you.
Okay.
Bye. Good
Bye.
night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Mary. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye,
Edmund.
bye.
Bye, Peter.
Hi,
Bye-bye.
Mary.
Cheryl.
Cheryl
Lynn.
Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
Cheryl Lynn.
Congratulations
Hi,
on your new apartment, Lynn.
Thank you.
Lynn, I
That-
want to
that
congratulate
is
you.
nice
again
apartment.
with this
Lynn, you should
beautiful
teach
apartment
people
that
how
you
to
have.
win the housing lotto. That is cool. That is cool.
very,
That is the real
very
thing.
good.
I don't know if
Yeah.
it's a life plan, but yeah, thank you.
It's a step. It's a step up.
Yeah,
Bye.
it is. It is.